Let's continue with part 2 of Sponsored Name Segmenter by discussing the area above the line. As mentioned earlier, one thing that is different about Sponsored Name Segmenter than the other segmenters in Denari is that it performs actions, and they are found in the action field. Starting at the top, we have checked out to donor and check out to event. You could use this to check out a group of sponsored names to either a donor or an event. First, you might select a filter below, let's say community. You might want to work on getting sponsors for the children in a specific community, so you will select that in the community filter field. Next, select the action, and if you're checking them out to a donor, you'll need to go to the check out to donor field and select a name record there. Or if you're checking them out to an event, you can go to the Checkout to Event field and select an event. Events, by the way, are appeal codes. Now, click on Run Segment Action. Denari will run the segment, find the sponsored names with that community code, and mark them as checked out to either the donor or the event. The next two actions are Clear Checkout and Clear Checkout to Event and Donor. So you can save this segment when you originally check them out if you want, and then come back and choose one of these options to return the sponsored names back to their non-checked out status by selecting one of those actions and running the segment again. The count action is just that. It gives you a number of names identified by the segment. The report will go to your inbox. The next action is Put Name into Class. This refers to classifications that work in a similar way to classifications for donors. However, they are a different set of classifications. You can create those classifications or codes and assign them to your sponsored names. This action allows you to assign them in mass. For this to work, you'll need to go to the Update Sponsored Name class and select a classification. Now, when you run the segment, Denari will find all of the donors identified by the filters below and then assign this classification. The next two we see is Put on Hold and Queue for photo card printing, and they're fairly self-explanatory. Choosing one of those and running the segment will either put the group identified by filters on hold or check the box for photo card printing. You can provide a reason for the hold by selecting something in that field. You will also find the Takeoff Hold field down here at the bottom of the list, and so you can uncheck the hold box by selecting that and running the sponsored name record again. Set eSponsor on or off will check or uncheck that box in the sponsored name record. That is the flag that helps to determine if a sponsored name will appear on the online community site or not. So you could, for example, remove an entire group of names from a community if needed by using that field as the filter. Set status to A, AP, or S changes the status field in the sponsored name record. It does not change the system status field, the field that Denari calculates. The last item on the list here is Update Sponsorship Count. CNT stands for count, and it goes together with the number of sponsors allowed field. It allows you to change the number selected in the number of sponsors field found in the sponsored name record. For example, if you put a 3 in the number of sponsors allowed field and run the segment, Denari will find the sponsored name records identified by your filters below and put that 3 in the number of sponsors field for each of the name records. There's some other fields here like Make Excel Spreadsheet, Print Labels, and Print Letters, and they perform their own action. However, they have one thing in common. You have to choose something from the action drop-down field. So if you want an Excel spreadsheet showing sponsored name data, you'll need to check the Make Excel Spreadsheet checkbox and also choose Count here from the action field. Denari will deliver a count and a link in the spreadsheet in your inbox. If you choose print labels, you can check that box and again choose count. Denari will produce the labels for the sponsored names identified by your filters in an Avery 5160 format. Finally, if you choose print letters, again choose count and select the letter that you want from the search function. These are the same letters you would create here under the plus sign and letters. The output here will be an 8.5 by 11 page with the name and address of the sponsors of the sponsored names identified by your filters. The letter body will be the one you selected. No other information is shown in this output. Again, the purpose of the sponsored name segmenter is to identify sponsored names and output sponsored name information. But what if you want sponsorship information? Remember that a sponsorship is a pledge, so sponsorship information can be found in Pledge Segmenter. One of the things that makes reporting from Denari so flexible is that we can link segments together. Let's say that we want to find out which of our sponsors are behind in their sponsorship payments. Again, remember that a sponsorship is a pledge, so we can go to Pledge Segmenter and filter to find those pledges that are behind. We don't need the sponsored name segment for that because the filters we need are contained in the pledge segment. But what if we want those pledges that are behind confined to just the sponsored names from a specific community? We can first create a sponsored name segment that identifies the sponsored names from that community, and we've already seen how we can do that. Now we can link that to the pledge segment. Click the Reports button here on the left, then Query Tools, and then Pledge Segmenter. We can create a new segment or use one that we already have. For our purposes, I'm just going to select one that's already been created. I'll click to expand the pledge section, and the first field we see here is the sponsored name segment. If we select our sponsored name segment that identifies the sponsored names from that community, we can also then select filters from the pledge segment that identifies pledges that are behind. Now I'll expand the statistics section and we'll slide down to the ahead behind field. Here I'll choose less than as the operator, and I'll put a 0 in the low value field. That will give us any pledge where the ahead behind field shows a negative number. So now when we run the pledge segment, Denari will first run the sponsored name segment and find the sponsored names from that community, and then run the pledge segment to find the pledges associated with those names whose ahead behind is less than 0. You can see that we now have the filters from the sponsored name segment and those from the pledge segment available to you. That then allows you to link the pledge segment to pledge statements if you want to run statements for just that group of people. And you can also link the pledge segment to a name segment to produce a list of names that meet all the criteria. And finally, you can link a pledge segment to a gift segment to get gift information related to your filters. Again, it can be complicated, but it also gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility. For more information on name, gift, and pledge segmenters, you can review those videos. This concludes the training videos on Sponsored Name Segmenter. If you have any questions, you can contact tech support through the help button at the top of the page.